it is time to update stimulus PPP EIDL and with everybody. And there are a lot of speculations, delayed, inaccurate information. So here in the next 40 minutes, we will clear that up for you. And on top of that, we'll talk about tax implementations related to these items. I want to generally talk to you about these acts, and I really want you to have a good understanding of what's going on in Washington, D.C., because that understanding would help you to not get confused with what's proposed versus what has already been on the table. And we have 3 acts we're actively talking about these days. CARES Act, that is already signed into the law on March 27th this year. That means when you work with your tax professionals or when you work with anybody, anything written in CARES Act is actually law. So you can implement it, you can count on it. And a quick example would be if you have a loss in 2019 and 2020, and you can go back to 2014 and 2015 to recover the taxes you paid for the earnings, for the profit you made. So those are in the law, so you should plan for that. When we do tax planning for our client this season, folks, we actually have a list of CARES Act checklists, and we check everything on CARES Act to see whether that applies to your business or not. So that's what the other CPA firms should do. That's what your tax preparer should do, and know that CARES Act is set in stone. And there's 2 other acts is still at a proposal stage, and it's not, it's not being voted with the House or Senate, and certainly not presented to the president at this time. So I want you to know what's in there, because it could come really fast before November 3rd. Then we need to include that into all of the planning for our life, right? And talk about your life is being managed by small group of people in Washington, D.C. That's not understatement. That is something going on right now. And let's take a look at what they're doing. So HEROES Act, and by the House, they voted on October 1st. So they had an earlier version, I think it's May. They made a lot of changes and narrowed the gap between HEROES Act and the HEALS Act. The Senate Act. So in October 1st, they voted. They got the final version out already from the House side. So now it is the reconciliation with the Senate. And the Senate voted on July 27th, and they didn't have anything changed up to this point. I know on Monday, they come back in session, so they will be working on the proposals they have on their table and to see whether they want to narrow the gap with HEROES Act, then come up with something reconciled, then present it to the president to sign into the law before the election date. Or like President Trump said that he would not do anything before election date, and I understand the virus situation, and I am sympathetic to whoever is sick. So I am so sorry. I need to get rid of this for you. Yes. Okay. All right. So now let's just go ahead, look at what's in each of those and what could be coming and what's in common. And what's in common would most likely be going through before November 3rd. And folks, these 3 acts has the same related to that. That is the stimulus check maximum payment amount. And remember, we already got the $1,200 and or $2,400 for the joint filer and single filer. So that benefit, it is the same. So both HEROES Act and HEALS Act, and agree with what already in the CARES Act and wanting to send out another round of stimulus check. So this is a lot of American people are relying on for their rent, for their food. So I really don't see any reason why that piece alone can go to the president, get signed, and I guess president can do executive order at any time. So this is one that I see both acts are the same. So very hopeful we will have the second round stimulus check coming in. Then now let's talk about unemployment benefits side of the things. And I picked just the items that really related to small business owners. So a lot of small business owners are relying on the stimulus check. So there you go. And you know that both proposed act has the same thing. So that should not need any negotiation, whether it's Republican or Democrats, they should easily come into the agreement. And then what is difference related to unemployment benefit? Unemployment benefit is really important for small business owner as well. On one hand, some of the small business owners are claiming unemployment benefit. On the other hand, some of the small business owners are affected by unemployment benefit, so they can't even get their workers back because the workers are getting more paid over there under unemployment versus their business. So it is a real situation that small businesses are facing. So these act, how they propose, is becoming important to the small business owners. How much the unemployment benefit should be. The HEROES Act says that go with whatever CARES Act already have, which is $600 per week. And the HEROES Act want to endorse again for CARES Act to just extend that time so people can get that now instead of getting that used up by July. And the HEALS Act reduced from CARES Act. HEALS Act proposed a $200 per week, and then later on had a $500 per week, but plus state benefit. So that complicates how the spirit of the CARES Act, because CARES Act simply is a federal dollars, here you go, $600 a week. And so that's the amount of the benefit difference between the two acts, between the two proposals. How long the unemployment benefits should go on, and that has two separate proposals too. And the HEROES Act and of January 31st, 2021, and also says that giving transition period for a quarter. So that's end of to the end of March. So that's HEROES Act saying that benefit let's continue to the end of January next year, and also give 60 days transition to the end of March. And HEALS Act want that to end on December 31st, 2020. So no extension to next year. So that's the difference between the unemployment benefit. So I just talked to you about stimulus check. That's the same for everybody. Every proposal come around Washington, D.C. is the same. But on the unemployment benefit, with the amount and the time of the benefit time period, there are difference between the two proposals. And then the next one, I want to talk about PPP. So in HEROES Act, and this is from the House. House is a Democratic Party dominated, and the Senate is Republican dominated. So you kind of see the spirit of the two party, how they want to help the economy and recovery. So HEROES Act here says that to allocate over $30 billion to allow second PPP for small businesses that less than 200 employees, and it has a 25% of reduction in sales at a quarterly basis. Okay, and excluded public traded company and put limit on the business with multiple locations. So the spirit of that is to have smaller dollar amount, 30 billions only, and just to take care of the mama papa shop, the small ones, and under 200 employees, and no more public traded company, and no businesses, give a limitation on multi-location businesses, which they belong to. They're larger than the individual business. And HEALS Act and says that to allocate over 190 billion, so a lot more than HEROES Act, and expand to all businesses to request a second round PPP, eliminating payroll requirement. So I am just sitting here imagining that these will be the airlines, the big companies, and they don't have to pay for workers. They can use that PPP for something else. Kind of, my personal opinion, that goes away from the spirit of PPP. So that's a HEALS Act proposal and from the Senate. So that's PPP. Let's look at employee tax credit. And a lot of you heard my presentation. I look at your name on the list, and I think you were on that seminar as well. If not, and go back to YouTube channel and look for the payroll fiasco, a webinar that I spoke, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks ago. That is still valid. And I really explained, I broke down all the possibilities related to payroll mess up, because people are so confused with retention credit, payroll tax deferral, payroll tax holiday, and they don't know which one is which. Okay, so the payroll retention credit is this one. Is this the one I'm talking about right now? So HEROES Act says that to go with CARES Act, the tax credit is on 50% of up to 10,000 in wages, which is limiting the person who get paid a lot. Let's say if you have someone who got paid more than 120,000 a year in salary, and they're capped at 10,000. And so the 50% is related to the taxes. So when you submit 941 taxes, you could take the taxes back to pay for 50% of your wages. Basically, that's a refundable tax credit. It's a huge credit. If you don't have PPP, like those public traded company, and initially they got PPP, then they refunded, they're not going for PPP, they're going for this, okay? So the employee tax credit and the HEROES Act says that stay with what CARES Act has. But HEALS Act says that increase it to 65% up to 30,000. 30,000 means you can just use 30,000 times 12. So that's 420,000 a year payroll for someone with that amount of payroll to get this credit. So I think it is definitely budgeted for more well-doing people and the businesses. So that's the thought behind to support large businesses and the people at the C level. So this is where that difference on employee tax credit. Then what other difference they have? So there is a thing called the bonus for employees who start new jobs or have rehired. So if I am on unemployment benefit and I got rehired by my boss and I'm going back to work, and I will be getting, as an employee, I will be getting a bonus. And the CARES Act didn't have this. This is new, come out of both the Senate and the House. So the House says, the House did not make a comment on this particular item, but the HEALS Act, the Senate, goes $450 per week through the end of the year. So that's where the difference comes in related to the bonus. So the HEROES Act basically says, well, the CARES Act didn't have it, so we don't propose anything. But the Senate proposed $450 per week. So that means, let's say if I worked in the restaurant and I go back to work and make my minimum wages, but I still have this $450 per week bonus that coming to me because I got rehired and I went back to work. Now, the liability protection from coronavirus illness. This is another difference between the two proposals. And this one did not have, the CARES Act didn't have it. So it brought up by the HEALS Act by Senate, says that 5-year liability shield to prevent school, business, hospitals from being sued over coronavirus related issues. So we have already seen an uptick of lawsuit to the employers for having people working at the work and they caught virus, they sue employer or they sue whoever, sue the airline. So there's a lot of things that coming up right now related to that. And this HEALS Act prevented people from suing for 5 years. So that's what that is. And the HEROES Act did not have that in place. And I guess that's a position it takes that maybe you could sue, and if it is gross negligent, and as long as we don't have the liability protection from coronavirus illness, and I guess people are free to sue and to be indifferent, right? Then the other one we have here, which is the last one related to the small businesses that I checked out, which is called eviction protection. And you remember that August 8th, President came up with the executive order, and the order has like 4 items, and really just one of them is pretty effective, got extended to the end of the year. That was a student loan part. And the eviction was a well-wish, but no teeth, nothing can be done. And the payroll holiday for employee, that was so chaotic. And I mean, literally shut down by every payroll organization, that they can't really do it. They don't know how to do it. So that really none of the void doesn't really work. So with that, and you can see, and then the last executive order was that unemployment benefit. So a lot of state has already implemented. I think the only South Dakota didn't take it, but every other state applied for FEMA funds. So the unemployment benefit is like right around $400 a week. So that's that one. That's the executive order. So eviction is one of the order that didn't work, right? So here and in HEROES Act, and the House put carved out, want to allocate 59.1 billion to rent relief and other housing services. So they want this chunk of money and to work for the tenant, work for small landlord and housing service organization. And the HEALS Act did not have anything with that. They don't really have any proposal to help with the eviction protection. So that's kind of the big picture of where we are right now. And today is Saturday, and 48 hours later, and the Senate will be in session, and they will be working on their HEALS Act, and I'm sure new things are gonna come out. You know, I always talk on Tuesday and Saturday. So if there's something big come out, I will cover that on Tuesday for 30 minutes. If not, I will wait for Saturday to see what's going on, and I'll keep you posted for sure. And I want to go back to my original thought of those 3 acts, and just remember, we have CARES Act already come out, and it is already become a law. So I need you to know that you need to practice it. So if you have something already become a law and you don't use it, then you just lose it. It is your responsibility to know what they are and how to utilize it, right? In one of my webinars, I had CARES Act explained. I summarized 13, I believe it's 13 points. Yeah, 13 points that related to small businesses and the individuals. And you can look at what I have out there and really understand, because once you listen to that, you will have a way to connect that to yourself. But you have to, I can't emphasize enough that this 2020 is just not a regular year, okay? And if you never really care about politics like I never did, and I don't care about politics still, and I'm independent, okay? I just care about the people and the small business. So I care about the government policy need to address the issue we have in front of us. So if you are like me, you need to care what's out there and understand what is already becoming the law and utilize it. If you still don't want to do it, and you always can rely on us to take care of your business, and we are very neutral. And I will tell you that I really just care about this country still being the country that the first day I landed. And I came here for American dream, and I do not want to end up with American nightmare. So I want the country to be well. I want our people to be less divided. And, you know, it doesn't matter Republican or Democrats, they're all really trying to do the best for the country. A person doesn't represent the party. I will say that 1,000,000 times to you. A person does not represent the party. So I think we just need to look at the fact in front of us and do the best we can and vote, okay? And I vote, and if you're worried about your ticket not being counted, vote in person. And that's what we will do. And that's the only way to keep Americans still the way Americans and United States should be, okay? Here, and the HEROES Act, and I summarized the 3 acts for you. The HEROES Act is in the making and already voted on October 1st. So I'm pretty sure that's how it's gonna go for reconciliation. And the Senate bill will be updated by Monday, Tuesday when they're in session. Hopefully by the end of the week, they come up with something in Congress that is consolidated, then can be handed over to the president. If he's not ill enough that to see the merit of the act, then he'll sign that into the law. And here, I want to talk about the PPP update because everybody cares about this one. And the PPP and closed, that PPP program closed on August 8th. So if you applied earlier but denied, you know, we still recommend you to work on that, okay? So I told in here, I want you to contact your senators, your congressman and woman in your district to ask for assistance because you applied it before August 8th, so you should be getting it, okay? Don't worry about the second round because in the second round, you should be getting it second round. You don't want to sit here goes, oh yeah, I just gonna wait for the second round. No, and you are going to be proactive instead of passive, okay? And a lot of our small business owners are very good with being passive. Then the simplified forgiveness process. Remember we talked about this automatic forgiveness process. Forget about it. It doesn't exist. And the two sides didn't come together and it's not the reality. But on October 7th, just a couple of days ago, the PPP had, the SBA issued a new guidance. They call that interim final guidance. You know, English is my second language. When I look at that ruling, calling it interim final, I'm just like, these two words can actually be together. I have never ever imagined those words, adjectives can stay together. So, but anyway, it's called IFR in short, is interim final ruling. And that one says that anything PPP that you received under 50,000, and you fill up an even more simple form, and then it should be a very easy way to apply for forgiveness. Contact your financial institution, whether it's a credit union or bank, whoever, and wherever you receive your PPP funding from, apply for forgiveness. If you are 50 and under, please do it right away. And this interim final rule only last for 30 days. All right, 30 days, up to November 7th maybe, because they issued that on the October 7th. So under IFR, PPP borrowers of 50,000 or less are exempted from any reductions in forgiveness based on full-time equivalent and salary. Remember, you have to like keep certain levels, and so that complication is done. You don't have to meet any of that as long as you just spend it, okay? According to the interim final rule, when a borrower submit form 3508S or the lender equivalent form, they say lender equivalent because some of the bank, they created their own electronically, so you just fill up on the computer. So they call that equivalent. And for that kind of form, the lender will be required to you want to know what lender requires you to do because they are answering to SBA, so they're asking you. So make sure that what the bank asks you is no more and no less than what SBA asks them, okay? Just read through this. The lender, your bank, will be required to submit the following to SBA. Number one, receipt of borrower certification contains in the form. So in that form, I will show you shortly, in that form, and you will have a place where you sign, okay? Sign, oh, truth, nothing but truth, and sign your life away. So they want to receive that. And receive of documentation the borrower is required to submit to aid in verifying payroll and non-payroll costs as specified in the instruction to the form. See, they still want to know that you spend the money based on the required amount, right? The payroll and the non-payroll cost and payroll cost, right? So, but they're not requiring you to meet more than the comparing period. So there's no quantifying requirement anymore. They just want you to submit that you did spend that money for that purpose. So remember I said earlier, look at this slide, reduction in full-time equivalent employee and reductions in employee salary wages is no longer a consideration for anyone who has PPP under 50,000. So you don't have to worry about that. Oh, what if I didn't really have enough employee? You know, I did spend the money, but I didn't have enough employee. I just spent it for a longer period. That is okay. Okay. So they want to prove that you did spend that money on those qualifying items, and the borrower is responsible, which is the lending, the bank is responsible for providing a accurate calculation of the loan forgiveness amount. If you submitted, if your loan forgiveness amount is 20,000 and you submitted 40,000 payroll expenses, you still just get to 20,000. You don't get 40,000. So there's no reason to submit more. You just need to submit exactly what your principal amount is. All right. And lenders are permitted to rely on borrowers' representations according to interim final rules. So SBA told the bank, just basically this is what SBA say to the bank. You know what? We allow you to rely on community CPA's paperwork. You don't have to. You don't have to verify anything. You can rely on that. So they're taking responsibility, liability away from the bank. So if you as a small business owner went to the lending institution and they gave you a hard time, this person just don't want to forgive you. You felt like you stuck. They're asking more than what SBA is asking. This is why you are here. Listen to what your right is. What is the bank doing? And I know most of the banks are helpful when they give the loan to you because they're getting percentage of commission income. And who is not going to be helpful? I would if I get that commission income, but forgiveness is a different story. Although interim financial rules, final rules already take away some liabilities from the bank, but some bank maybe just not that, just don't want to get loose, and they just want to make sure to protect them, extra protections whatsoever, so they could ask for more. Just be prepared. It's not a cookie cutter approach, and it's so much relying on your own bank. So good luck with that. And if you're worried about your luck is bad and you don't know what to do, and of course you have community CPA, and we fight for you. And we, you know, I think that we just, community CPA, we have a bunch of very good heart, ethical people here. So we do the right thing for small business owners. Payroll taxes, okay? Executive order deferred the due date for employees 6.2% for Social Security withholding through December 31st. That went out of the window, goes for folks. You don't really want to still hold on to that. Nobody does it. Okay, it's an executive order, but too bad, so sad, nobody cares. Okay, so it's not working. I want you to know that there's no fix to it either. So don't even count on that. The only thing left on the table right now, it is payroll tax deferral and retention credit. Retention credit is the one that the HEROES Act and the HEALS Act is proposing, and the HEROES Act didn't mention anything. HEALS Act actually gave the same thing as a CARES Act, but HEALS Act, HEROES Act is the same as CARES Act, but HEALS Act is actually expanded it to the C-level employees, basically. So that's kind of the payroll side of things, and you know what is on the table. And if you have PPP, that retention credit doesn't apply to you, and the only thing apply to you is the payroll deferral. And why are you not doing that? I think you should. Okay, and community CPA doing that, and we defer 6.2% employer match portion of the Social Security number, Social Security amount that is allowed through CARES Act. Okay, so you need to know what you can do to save your cash and to get through this difficult time, right? All right, EIDL loan. Now, I want to say that it is still open. It is still available for you to apply. So who did not apply for EIDL loan? Raise your hand and I'm going to come over to you. And you should, please, okay? I want to say this, not because I have any insight, and I kind of trust my sixth senses, if you call it. And if this pandemic is getting worse, you know, we already have 20-some people in White House get infected. So if it is getting worse, and EIDL loan is a very easy vehicle for government to delay the payment or coming up with some forgiveness program. It's not there. It's not in HEROES Act. It's not in HEALS Act. And it's not even on internet. Nobody talk about it. And it's just me, I'm talking to myself. It feels like I'm talking to myself anyway, right? You're there, but I am talking. So I say you need to apply, okay? If you don't know how to apply, I'll show you. Oh, I will go to the website to lead you to how to do that, okay? And then you know that there is a proposal, Senate Bill 4227. And in that bill, the Senate want to give the grants. Remember, there's a 10,000 grants to the EIDL loan recipients. Then somehow the SBA decided it only gives you 1,000 per employee, and only decided that 150,000 is the maximum operating cash you needed. That's what happens to all the small businesses. We don't get any more than that. So that Senate bill actually says that to make up the difference between the 1,000 to 10,000. So if you only receive 1,000, you should be getting another 9,000. So those are on the table. But other than that, I mean, EIDL loan doesn't have a lot of changes. And if you know, I wrote down here the customer service representative number. I know I'm giving you a number, a really kind of, it's not like you're calling community CPA. We have a real person for you, okay? So when you call these 1-800 number, you got a real robot sound like a person. And then, but I give you some email addresses here, right? You can try your luck, and I want to make sure that you apply for EIDL loan. And let's say if you're stuck, and the other sources you want to look into, it is the local SBDC center and also SBA offices in your local area. And you can just check on internet saying local SBDC or SBA office. And if you talk to your local folks and they know your business, they know who you are, and it is really going to help. And I don't want you to not realize how important that local connection you have to Washington, D.C. That connection could be a straight line, and it could also be, you going on internet, putting on some complaints and nowhere, it doesn't land anywhere. This media, these social media making things very messed up. So nothing become priority. Nobody's comment is counting on anything. It's just a mess, right? So you want to try to get a hold of a person. The only way to do that is your local representative. And I know in Des Moines, Iowa, we have brilliant office here on Walnut Street. I mean, Miss Armstrong is lead that office. If you call her, she answer. I mean, very approachable office, and you don't really want to go anywhere. Just talk to them about anything you need to know. Okay, so that is so much about the update for now related to what's going on at the White House and at Washington, D.C. Nothing I have in control. I'm just telling you what's going on. And now it is time for tax planning, right? It is in our firm, we mark our calendar from the 16th of October all the way to December 31st. It is what we call tax planning season. During this time, we have a list of clients that we knew they needed tax planning because one or two numbers, some numbers on their financial statement fall into the planning scale scope. For example, a client who always had done great business, but because of this pandemic, this year they closed for almost 4 months and they're suffering loss. And that kind of client immediately falling into tax planning scope for us, because the CARES Act has a brilliant clause in there, allow you to take money back from the past. So simply put, if you've been paying federal taxes $10,000 a year since 2014, and 2020 you had so much loss, the total loss is equals to all your gains from 2014 to 2019. You know what happened in this case? You will get all the taxes refund back to you. Because you've been paying taxes, now you have a loss, you can go back. That's CARES Act. Okay, so CARES Act has 13 items that I summarized in my webinar. You need to listen, you need to know which one applies to you, and you can be smart to approach to your tax preparer and ask whether you can take advantage of that. And it's really your loss, nobody else's, your loss, okay? And the government didn't give you that money, they are not even trying to keep it. It's you wanting to leave that for the government as a tip from you. And I don't know, you get credited for the tips, but if you don't apply, it is your loss, nobody else's. It's not like government is celebrating you don't know, they don't have to pay you. I think their law came out and meant for you to use it. If you don't use it, there's nothing they can do, okay? So now, and I want to talk about the PPP in particular, because PPP, now we're doing 2020 tax return, right? So tax planning. So we are going to file by December 31st, we cut off the year, and we're going to say that what happened in that year. Is your PPP taxable or not? That is a big question, right? So let's read what's out there so you understand what's the implementation of this particular question. CARES Act, PPP loan forgiveness may be excluded from gross income by an eligible recipient by the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. So CARES Act says PPP loan forgiveness may be excluded from gross income. Okay, that's how far CARES Act goes. Then in April of 2020, after CARES Act was signed into law on March 27th, an IRS issued a notice 2020-32. So on here, it says that expenses associated with the tax-free income are non-deductible. What does that mean? That means if you receive $20,000 in PPP amount and you used for payroll for $20,000, and the CARES Act say you don't need to include the $20,000 into your gross income. It is not your income. Don't put there. That's what CARES Act says. But the IRS says you cannot, not are non-deductible means you cannot deduct. You cannot deduct the expenses affiliated with the tax-free income. So PPP is tax-free income because they don't get included in the gross income. So the expenses related to that, your 20,000 payroll, before your accountant will just list that as expenses for you, right? So now what happens to 2020? 2020, you need to take that out. So sure, you don't include 20,000 in income. You also don't get to include 20,000 in expense. So it's a wash off. So if you happen to be the business who gets $2 million PPP loan, your $2 million payroll is not going to be expense. So this is what we're trying to tell you. And so don't get confused that people tell you that, well, someone said PPP is taxable. What do you mean by PPP is taxable? It is not taxable, okay? It's tax-free. But expenses related to tax-free income is not deductible. All right, so right here, there is an unclear point. At this point, it's still not being addressed. So let me go into here. So what isn't clear is that if it is non-deductible for 2020 tax return, or not until 2021 when forgiveness is determined. So at this time, our advice to our client is the two. So what happened is, because when you get a PPP, when you got the 20,000, you actually signed a loan document. So on your balance sheet, instead of booking that as an income, you increase your bank, you increase your liability. It's a PPP forgiveness loan. It's a loan, right? So you document your expenses the same way you have a loan. And as long as it is a loan here, your expenses is deducted, right? So what if in 2020, you don't know whether your loan is forgiven or not? So what are you doing for 2020? That's the question to you, right? So our advice right now to our client is, before it is forgiven, PPP is liability, right? So expenses are deductible. So that's our position. This is community CPA's position, doesn't represent anybody, but we think that we're reasonable in that interpretation. And it's in line with some of those discussions at AICPA. And so that's what the accountants are doing, right? So we're kind of having this accountant mentality. So as long as you're not forgiven, it is liability, you're supposed to pay back. And so your expenses are deductible, okay? But once it's forgiven, so once you receive the letter saying that your loan is no longer need to be paid back, you will put PPP into other income. If your expenses are related to the PPP already expensed in the prior year, then you are going to get additional income to pay taxes, because you already reduced your expenses in prior year. Now this year, you got a forgiveness notice, so 20,000 become other income. Your affiliated expenses already deducted in last year, so this year you don't have it. So the 20,000 short of becoming an item has nothing to offset, right? So become other income. So I wrote, it will be added back to total taxable income if expenses had already been expensed. So this is where I want to land to say that the tax implementation is huge on PPP. But what about EIDL loan? EIDL loan is not a problem. EIDL loan is a liability. So you borrow the money, you need to pay it back. And then now whatever you spend, that's a tax deductible, okay? Then what about the stimulus check, it's already said that stimulus check is not taxable. Even if you got the stimulus check the first round, but in 2020 or in 2020 your income was too high, you're not eligible really for the first round, but you already got it, that is still not taxable. You don't have to go back to change it. Then what about then you maybe say that, well, if it is not taxable, and so that means in 2020 I would have two loans. I would have EIDL loan on my book, PPP loan on my book. So maybe in 2021, when I know I'm being forgiven, and then I will put PPP back into other income, but your EIDL loan will kick in, you start making payment in June. But of course, you can pay back EIDL loan in one shot. That would be your decision, okay? So, and on the payroll side, and you had the payroll deferrals I talked about, that's 6.2% for Social Security that you did not pay, so you can have your cash flow, but you are going to pay in 2021 and 2022, 50% in 2021, 50% in 2022. So with that, and whatever your expenses you have is literally a payable, so you still have that expenses on your book. What about retention credit? Retention credit is a refundable credit. It just says that you're going to reduce your payroll expenses. So your payroll tax expenses reduced by your retention credit. So those are the pretty straightforward tax implementations for businesses. So the most tricky one is actually the PPP. So now I want to show you a couple of items on the website where I plan to go through with you, because this is the, earlier I was talking about PPP, right? And this particular things you saw right here, and I know it is hard to read, but this is the interim final rules, the interim final rules. And this one talks about the 50,000, how easy that can be filled up and submit. And then this is the rule itself, and it's just bunch of English words. So you read it. And here it is the instruction for this new form called 3508. 3508S, that's the new form, okay? And this is new, so new, it's 2 days new, okay? And look, expires on October 31st. This form expires. It says that 30 days, but they came out on October 7th. So I don't know whether they should be expiring on November 7th, 6th, or why it is October 31st, I don't understand. But anyway, so give you instructions, really simple instructions. There is the form, my dear. Look at the form, okay? Let's just kind of go through this form. If you received PPP less than 50,000, and you're going to look at this form, this is what you're gonna use, okay? Your business legal name, your address, your DBA name, and your TIN number or your social security number, and the business phone number, and your name, contact information, and the email address, right? And SBA PPP loan number, you should have that. Lender loan number, you should have that. PPP loan amount, you know what that is, right? And you also know the disbursement date, like the day you receive that money, okay? Employees at time of loan application, they ask you the number, employees, and the employee at the time of forgiveness application, which is today. So you're gonna put that number there. And don't be sensitive about that number. Remember, you are exempt from that, right? So EIDL advanced amount, they want you to tell them whether you got a 10,000 or 1,000, what was that amount? And the application number, forgiveness amount, okay? Want you to fill in the total amount that is forgiven. So that should be the PPP loan amount. Now, the rest is your initials. The dollar amount for which forgiveness is required does not exceed the principal amount of PPP loan. You need to say yes, right? You need to initial. Yes, I agree. I understand that if the funds were knowingly used for unauthorized purposes, I am being charged fraud I understand your initial. Borrower has accurately verified the payments for eligible payroll and non-payroll costs. You sign your life away right here. I have submitted to lender the required document to verify those. You initial. And the information provided in this application as supporting document form and is correct in all material aspects. You sign it. The tax document I have submitted to lender are considered with those borrower has submitted, will submit to IRS. So I will file my taxes properly. Yes, you sign your name. I understand, acknowledge, and agree, and all of these. SBA, whoever wants more information, I'm abide by the compliance, sign your name, initial. Then you sign print, date, title. And then on the back of here, and this is the demographic information. The government like to know whether you are one of those, and it's not required, and there's no bearing on the loan forgiveness decision, so you don't have to fill up the second page. So basically, there really isn't any number here. The only number is the three numbers, is loan numbers, forgiveness amount numbers, and also the advance amount numbers. This is only $3 amount that we needed here. Okay, so it's very straightforward, and you want to make sure that you know that is coming to you at 30 days. Make sure you do that. Now, I think the last point I want to mention to you is this disaster loan assistance program. It is still on the website. Look, it says expiring date October 31st, but actually expires at the end of the year. Maybe they just want to keep the form fresh and updated. So make sure that you go through. It is a really easy process to apply because they made it so the small business can apply. And I really encourage you to do that if you haven't, and we will help you if you ask. And the community CPA at here, we speak 9 different languages, and our staff, we're so dedicated. We just don't have any other things in life. We just work for you. That's really what it is. And I hope you like us and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I will talk to you again. Thank you so much for being here. And I love every one of you. I saw your name. Talk to you. Bye.